Hello, everyone. It is I, Rob, here in my basement lair after a fun night of wall-to-wall combat in the Black Geode of the Temple of Elemental Earth. This is a recap, the State of the Dungeon address for the session, which took place on the 1st of May. So, no, sorry, 2nd of May. And this is what happened. The group had just arrived inside the Black Geode, traveling through the portal out of, or what seemed to be the tunnel out of the Fane of the Eye, which they had cleared. They found themselves in a large chamber, which was guarded by several Black Earth guards. Basically humans who had learned some tricks from their cult and were able to generate stout stone plate armor and stone morning stars to beat their opponents with. Tough fighters all in all, but not a match for the group anymore. They were guarding the outer levels of the Black Geode, and when the party moved up to attack, they moved up to fight. They did not recognize the party at first, but as the fight broke out, one of them realized, oh, we know who these people are, because Marlos is an intelligent foe. He may not be a powerful spellcaster like, Vanifer was much more powerful than he was, but he's more canny and not as insane. He's got his own issues, don't get me wrong, but he realizes tactics a bit better than Vanifer did. And he understands the kind of desperation that he's fighting and that these heroes will not rest until he is dead or they are. So he's studied them, he knows their method of fighting, and he generally knows that they are tied down to fighting a bit, then resting and getting their energy back, and then going back into the fray. This is the very real issue that monsters basically have to deal with in 5th edition. When the party can get back for even an hour, they can spend hit dice to get their hit points back up. As they bandage their wounds, a lot of characters get their powers back after a short rest. Of course, they get, if you can lose track of them for a full 8 hours, they could take a long rest, and then they're full. They have all their spells. They have everything back. They're full hit points. So Marlos realizes this is their bread and butter, that as long as they can keep going back to rest, he can never be sure of getting rid of them or even weakening them to a significant degree. So after they had finished fighting the guards, and the guards called for help, this led to a couple of elementals being summoned to fight them. They also got into an encounter with a stone melder. They're wizards of the cults. They don't follow proper wizard paths, but they're pretty nasty. There was one with a pet Zorn that was further in. The gnome had snuck ahead to see what was going on as the party was fighting the elementals, and he got bored. He saw that the two ahead, well, one was the Zorn, and he cast a fun little spell called Enemies Abound, which made the Zorn attack whoever got close to him. Well, his Stone Melder was right next to him, and the gnome dashed off, so the Zorn attacked the Stone Melder. The Stone Melder whapped him with his staff, which allowed him to break the control. But then he said some pretty vile things to the Zorn, who was not charmed or controlled. He was merely basically the equivalent of an animal handling check. He had a positive reaction to the Stone Melder, who was nice to him and gave him treasure. Well, after he beat him with his rod and yelled at him, the Zorn decided, I don't need to take this, and he walked off. They had a bad reaction together. So the Stone Melder merely used a a scroll with shaped stone, and he basically sealed the tunnel. The group has more than enough abilities to open up this. It was only a slight diversion to give them time to retreat and go back to talk to Marlos, however. But while the group was kind of collecting themselves, Marlos walked out of the wall, complete with a new miniature that I had just painted for him, and taunted them, basically saying, "While you are here, we're playing a very deadly game, and I play to win, so you're not going to get your chances to rest. I can see wherever you are, and the moment I think you've run to ground, elementals are going to come crashing through the walls until you are dead. You don't have that luxury anymore. I'm taking it from you, and I will see you further in, or whatever is left of you after my minions have their way with you first." And the elementals have proven they are tough to take down. They have an armor class that isn't a gimme to hit, even for experienced warriors, and they have a lot of hit points. They can do decent damage, so this kind of war of attrition was really playing into the hands of Marlos. So, yeah, these battles against these elementals were fairly long. The group agonized about how they were going to get through the stone until Oryx said, "I have a short sword that can cut through pretty much anything inanimate. It's called Ruin." He just went, door, no problem. Once they were inside there, the stone melder was no longer there. He left. So the group now started to have to decide where they were going to go. They were confronted with multiple passages, and they followed the age-old tradition of following the right-hand wall that will eventually get you through just about any maze. As long as there's no moving paths or anything like that, yeah. So by doing this, they didn't know it, or I'm hoping they didn't know it, but that did actually enable them to avoid the nastiest of the Guardians and the Geode. They skirted around and got into a fight with some specters. The specters were there tormenting a dwarf ghost who was guarding a helm, which happened to be the lost crown of Besselmer, the nation of dwarves in this valley. The crown itself is a relic that can be used by dwarves. But the group has pledged to take it to the tomb of the last king of Besselmer to ease the soul of the ghost who didn't attack them, didn't make them do it, just had a good role-playing encounter with this dwarf. So they agreed to do that. The specters were relatively easy for them to kill, and they were prepared to move onward. Ugh, I'm sorry for yawning, but the game ran a little late last night, so the group, following again the right-hand wall, eventually came into a room with a stream of mud and a mud pool, which actually was a gate to the elemental plane of Earth. Inside was an Earth Myrmidon, an elemental who's been crammed in with certain rituals into a suit of armor to force it to stay on the prime plane, rather than just vanishing back to the plane from whence it came. It also prevents it from remembering the times when it was free, making it an ideal guardian who'll never age, never eat, won't sleep, and will blindly follow their orders. It gives them a little bit of extra power, although it doesn't do massive things for their armor class or hit points. It for example, the Earth Myrmidon gets a nasty Thundering Smite ability which can knock down opponents and do significant damage. So, they Alpha Striked the Myrmidon. Basically, the ranged attackers got to throw their attacks at him before it could react, and then the monk ran into the room to attack it and got smashed with that Thundering Smite. She was taken by surprise by its attack. But the rest of the group came in and eventually beat it down. It was not able to do another Thundering Smite again. Finally, they destroyed it. The little Mephits that were also in the room were wiped out by the fireball that was launched at the opening of the fight. So all told, the party took care of it without taking too much damage. And after that fight, they followed the tunnel again and found themselves in yet another room, which is kind of a junction room. It's small and it's full of purple glowing crystals. And that's where we stopped because it was getting fairly late. They are in a position that's not very defensible because there's not a lot of room to move out or to do any kind of operations, and everybody would be exposed to danger if there was a fight. So the party is going to have to figure out if they can, A, find some way to barricade themselves to a point they could get at least a couple of their members to rest, because they are getting pretty wiped out on spells and their endurance is flagging. Or if they're going to just barge their way through and try to take out the Prophet of Earth, Marlis Urnrail, with one big mighty surge. It'll be interesting because they know where he's at. They used Locate Object on his pick, which was very smart. And he's not very far off. So, could they do it? It'll be interesting, but we've already seen what happened when they tried to... Hello, Magic. When they tried to attack a Prophet when they weren't ready. So, we'll see. It'll be certainly interesting. Of note in this game, we had a guest who played Arvia, a lady dwarven fighter. So that was nice. The wife of one of the players who's interested in trying to play herself. It was very nice to have her, although usually a night of solid combat with a character that you've never used and are unfamiliar with the game system is not the way I would normally introduce a player. So I hope that she found some fun in it and wants to keep playing. We'll just do it something from first level and move on from there so that she can really get a feel for the role play of it all. All in all, that is where we are leaving the State of the Dungeon address. The group is wounded, tired, and desperate at this point, but hopefully they've got something in mind that will get them through, and we will pick it up from there. Thank you, and happy Cinco de Mayo to you. Farewell.